Hello and welcome to this how-to video for Instant ID. In this video, I will be demonstrating how to use the migration tool to migrate your IDWorks or IDCentre version 6.5 projects into Instant ID, meaning you do not have to create your card designs and projects again within Instant ID. Migrating from IDWorks or IDCentre to Instant ID. I will be using two IDWorks projects for this demonstration. The first project, called Craig's IDWorks project, does not have a database connected to it. The second project, called Craig's IDWorks project with DB, does have a Microsoft Access database connected to it, located in the following path and with the following name. Begin by exporting the projects via IDWorks Administrator by selecting Tools, Export Projects, checking the boxes for the projects you wish to export, clicking Browse, browsing to the location you wish to export the projects to, and clicking the Export button. In the following folder, I have the two IDWorks projects that I have exported with a file extension of .IDWX. I also have the Access database used by one of the projects. To access the migration tool, click on the gear icon, Tools, and click on Migration. Within the migration window, you browse to your IDWorks project, then you make your selections from the three checkboxes available. Then you click the Import button, and you can view a summary and details of the migration here. I will demonstrate the functionality of the three checkboxes as I migrate my IDWorks projects. I'm going to migrate my IDWorks project that does not use a database. I click on Browse, find the project, click Open, and for this demonstration I'm not going to select any of the three checkboxes. I click Import. Once the migration is complete, I'm provided a brief summary of whether the migration was successful or whether it failed. If I click on the eye symbol, I'm presented with a summary of what was migrated: number of workflows, cards, data sources, and field connections. If I click on the second symbol, I'm provided with detailed feedback of the successfully migrated components and any failed migration components. This window would also inform me if I had manual tasks to complete once the migration is finished. For example, if I have migrated a project which was connected to a database and I did not create that database connection within Instant ID prior to migrating the IDWorks project, I will be prompted to create that connection now. If I look at the card design that was imported with the IDWorks project, it is simply called Card. This is because I did not select the checkbox called Prefix Project Name to Production Forms and Card Designs at the time of migration. Therefore, the IDWorks project name was not appended to the card design name. It is called Card rather than Credential Design because I did not check the box Rename Card Design to Credential Design at the time of migration. If I look at the production form that was migrated with the IDWorks project, it is simply called Production Form. Again, the IDWorks project name was not appended to the name of the production form because I did not select this checkbox at the time of migration. And it is called production form rather than workflow design because I did not select this checkbox at the time of migration. I'm going to migrate the same IDWorks project again, but this time I'm going to select the first checkbox, prefix project name to production forms and card designs. This time you can see that the IDWorks project name has been appended to the credential design for easier identification. The IDWorks project name has also been appended to the workflow design. Once the IDWorks project has been migrated, it is recommended to open the credential design and check that the positioning of the fields on the credential design are to your satisfaction. It is also recommended to do the same with the workflow design, repositioning fields to your satisfaction. During migration, Instant ID sets the first text field alphabetically as the print job name identifier. If you wish, you can select a different field from the drop-down list, or you can use the workflow name and timestamp option. Your migrated projects are placed on the home screen and are ready for use. Notice that the search functionality is grayed out. This is because the projects were not connected to databases at the time of migration. You can, however, connect these projects to databases if you wish. Next, I am going to migrate the IDWorks project, which is connected to a database. Before migrating an IDWorks project into Instant ID, which is connected to a database, it is recommended to configure the database connection within Instant ID first. This allows Instant ID to automatically connect your project to the database at the time of migrating the IDWorks project into Instant ID. In order for this to work, the database connection you create within Instant ID must have the exact same name as your database. Begin by copying the name of your database to the clipboard. Within Instant ID, select the gear icon, Settings, Data Sources, and Create. Then paste the database name into the name field. Next, copy the file path location of the database to the clipboard. Then select your database type, in this case Microsoft Access, select Properties, paste file path location, copy the database name, paste it to the end of the file path location, and add the file extension for the database type. Test your connection to the database and save the database configuration. For advice regarding the configuration of other database connections within Instant ID, please refer to the how-to video for database configuration. Next, I'm going to import the IDWorks project, which is connected to the database. I browse to the IDWorks project, click Open, and this time I'm going to select all three checkboxes. I am notified that the migration was successful, and looking at the detailed feedback, I can see that a matching data source was found by Instant ID, which is the data source we configured previously. Looking at the name of the migrated credential design, it has the IDWorks project name, and it is called credential design rather than card because I selected the appropriate checkboxes. Looking at the workflow design, it contains the IDWorks project name, and it is called workflow rather than production form because I selected the appropriate checkboxes at the time of migration. Looking at my workflow properties, I can see that Instant ID found the database connection which I created prior to migrating the project and matched it with the workflow. Instant ID has also configured some fields to search the database by. You can configure more fields if you wish. Looking in the field connection screen, we can see that Instant ID has automatically connected the workflow fields between the credential design and the Access database. And on the home screen, our finished project is ready to use. I'm going to cover one last project migration, which involves an IDWorks project with a photo field and a signature field. If we look at the storage properties for the photo field, we can see that the photo field is configured to store photos in the following file path location. The folder on the right hand side shows the photos currently stored. If we look at the storage properties for the signature field, we can see that it is also configured to store the signatures in a file path location. The signatures already stored are shown on the right hand side. I have exported the project and I am now migrating it into Instant ID. I select the project, select my checkboxes, click import. However, the migration has failed. Looking at the further details, I can see I have an error regarding the path. That is because I have not created the two file path locations shown here on the PC that Instant ID is installed on. I need to create these two file path locations on the Instant ID PC and copy across the photos and signatures prior to migrating the project. Once the two folders, complete with photos and signatures, exist on the Instant ID PC, then the IDWorks project migration will be successful. One other aspect to take into consideration when migrating an IDWorks or IDCentre project containing photos or signatures is to ensure that the files are in one of the following formats supported by Instant ID. For further advice regarding the migration tool, you can browse to the following location and refer to the following document. That completes this demonstration. Thank you for watching.